All right, we got Curt Menefee, Fox NFL Sunday, from Fox NFL Sunday here. And Curt, I know you've talked to Kevin, you talked to Kwesi, you've seen practice, joint practice day number 1 just ended. What's your initial impressions, initial thoughts on being in Minnesota and seeing these two teams compete?
Well, one, it's not hot here like it is in Tampa and Philadelphia, a lot of the other places I've been, but it's just been fun just being around this team. It's been a couple of years. COVID forced you to miss some time and then other things. So it's a totally different atmosphere than it's been before. And it's not a knock against Mike Zimmer's regime or whatever. I love Mike. Mike's one of my favorite guys. But this camp feels lighter. I mean, there's a different energy around this team right now. And so that's a thing that you can only get by going to visit a team in training camp. I mean, you can't read that on the internet. You can't hear it from other people. You have to kind of experience it. And so that's really the first impression I came away with just being around this team today, is that it just feels so much lighter than it has in the past.
So we were talking before. You say you've been on the road since July 25th.
Yeah.
Every other weekend, every other day. What makes this camp different compared to other teams or other places that you've been?
I think one of the things that's different here is the fact that everything's new. You got a new head coach, you got a new general manager, and so maybe that adds to the light atmosphere here. You've got a new defense is trying to find its identity and figure out where it is. So a lot of things that are just kind of, you feel like people are dipping their toe in the water. Yeah. And it's really fun to see from a national standpoint as a broadcaster where they are now, and then you can measure where they are in September, October, November, and see if some of the things they thought would work will work, and how they adjust when they don't. Because not everything you plan in the offseason happens the way you want it to. And the teams that succeed are the ones that make adjustments on the fly. Use an example of another team here. But I remember last year, the Philadelphia Eagles, they came out of the gate, they didn't start well. I think they were 2-6 or whatever, but I have to look it up. But anyway, the head coach had been an offensive guy his whole life. He gave up the play calling. He was like, okay, look, I need to be able to take care of this and let someone else take it. You don't see that with first-year head coaches in the middle of a season. He made an adjustment. I'm not saying that was the right thing for everybody, but it was the right thing for him. So you're always impressed when you see teams kind of tweak on the fly.
For sure. And I feel like one of the other things that Kwesi is at least trying to tweak is he said he wants this Vikings team to be built to beat the Packers, similar to where the 49ers say they want the 49ers to be built to beat the Rams. So having that mindset, how does that help this team in this first year?
Well, you look at it and if you ever played sports when you were a kid, I remember when I first started playing football, I was like 7 or 8 years old, and my uncle told me, find the biggest bully you can find and then hit him, and that's kind of the mentality. The Packers have been the bully of this division for a long time. So if you want to play with the big boys, you got to go and kind of knock them out for a little bit. And I think that's the right mindset, for a new regime to have, to try and establish really a tempo for the way they want to practice, for the way they want to play, but also a standard of expectation. You can have goals. That's great. But goals are theories. You need expectations, which means when I walk in the building today or when you walk in the building, this is how we expect you to behave. This is how we expect you to play. This is what we expect the end game to be. Not just we hope for it to be. Our goal is to be the Packers. Right. The expectation is to be the Packers or to beat the Packers.
If we can beat the Packers, especially September 11th, first game of the season, Minnesota Vikings fans are going to be excited about that. But
these guys will never have to buy another drink here in Minnesota. All they got to do is win week 1, and they'll be taken care of.
Well, just speaking of week 1, it starts if you win week 1. I mean, people will probably forget about the rest of the season, but there are going to be 16 more games. Yeah. And as history proves it, first-year NFL head coaches, it's very rare they make it to the Super Bowl. Not saying that won't happen, and we are building this team to do so, but what are realistic expectations for this team?
Well, I think that part of the reason is that first-year head coaches tend to take over bad teams. This is not a bad team. This is a team that has been there, and look, things haven't finished the way you wanted to the last couple of years. And if the Super Bowl is your goal, not a shot for the last couple of decades. So this is a team, though, that's right there on the cusp and ready to go. They need to take the next step. You've got to shore up the defense, and I think Ed Donatell is a great guy to bring in. A guy who's been around the league a long time, a guy who's been a lot of places. But I think he's also can be a help to Kevin O'Connell as a first-time head coach. In some of the little minutia that coaches go through day to day that you don't know about until you're in that seat. I think Ed's a guy he can kind of lean on and kind of help. Mike Pettin, same thing, who's been in that position as a head coach on the defensive side of the football. So I think that the offense, if I were a Viking fan, I wouldn't be worried about it because I think your offense was good enough before, and you've got an offensive-minded guy coming in, and I think it's going to be even better. The defense and how it comes together, trying to switch to this 3-4 format. Hopefully, some of the guys can stay healthy. That's been the problem with Danielle Hunter the last couple of years. Zadarius Smith basically missed all of last year. He played in that playoff game, but with a back injury. So you hope if those guys can play to their expectations and the defense is able to make the changes, then there's the gap between you and the Packers is not that far.
My last question for you, because I know this is your last stop before you start the pregame show and everything, and I know you got to go deal with Howie, you got to go deal with Mike and all those guys, but what is the word going back to those guys when coming to gather notes and saying, okay, this is what I learned about the Vikings?
I think that I go back to what I said originally, that this spirit around here is lighter. And that it makes a difference. And I know people sit at home and they want to watch the movies and have the old school yell at you and put their foot in your behind, head coaches and all. This is a different league. And you look around the league and, you see those kind of guys struggling when they're head coaches. And I include Bill Belichick, who's probably maybe the greatest head coach in the history of the National Football League, certainly in the last 2 or 3 decades. He's struggling right now with that. And I think that players nowadays, this generation, they need somebody to kind of lift them up and be positive. And I feel that around this team. And I think that's the biggest thing that you could do, because the talent is there. You just got to get the most out of that talent that exists.
A lot of talent right here in this picture with Curt Menefee, and looking forward to watching you on Sundays on Fox NFL Sunday. But thank you again for your time today.
Anytime, Gabe.